So let's talk about your blocks to success. It's amazing. This is something probably within the last 5 to 7 years I started realizing with a lot of my patients and a lot of my coaching clients who, really felt stagnated. They wanted to springboard into their passion, whatever that passion is. Maybe it was writing a book, starting their own business. Maybe it was traveling the world. Who knows? Maybe it was starting their own blogs or video blogs or whatever. One of the common things that I've learned or realized or recognized in individuals that seem to have a very difficult time really springboarding themselves or catapulting themselves into going after their passions or going after their dreams is they tend to be judgmental. They tend to be judgmental. So that's the first thing I want to talk about today. And I want you guys, give me some feedback too when I talk about this, because when I confronted a few clients on this over the years and they never realized that could be something halting their success, they had to admit themselves that, hey, maybe you're on to something here. So think about it. People who are judgmental or find themselves always criticizing or being overly critical of other people tend to have a difficult time themselves putting themselves out there in the limelight, like really putting themselves out there for the world to see, because they have been so conditioned by themselves to believe that everyone like them is so critical and so judgmental that they will avoid at all costs to put themselves in any position where they'll be judged. And as a result, they really miss out on tapping into all those great things in life that's going to help them plug into the success and the fulfillment they want. So I want to challenge you guys. I want you to ask yourself, do you find yourself being overly judgmental and critical of people? Do you find yourself on social media always looking at what people are doing and saying, who do they think they are? What makes them think they're qualified to do that? Or I could do that. If you find yourself or ever found yourself doing that, you may really need to challenge yourself on your judgmental tendency to just criticize individuals, because that's really halting you from going forward. Because a person who is extremely judgmental, they associate, again, putting themselves out there on the front lines with being judged. And they don't want to be judged because they're well aware of how much they judge, and they don't want to be the target of that judgment or that critique. So if you find yourself doing any of those things, just wondering, the audacity, what gives that person the audacity to think that they can say they're a life coach, or the audacity to write a book or what have you, challenge yourself, because that attitude is really preventing you from going after what it is that you want. Believe it or not, being overly judgmental actually reduces your self-confidence. And it affects your ego, and you find yourself not being able to really take the chances to go out there and really put yourself out there to live this life that you deserve, to really tap into the passion that you have for whatever it is that you desire in life. The second thing that I wanted to touch base on that I see can be a very huge hindrance in a person really tapping into their fulfilling life is not really knowing who they are, not living authentically. That was one of the first things I talked about earlier. It's amazing. I talked about this when I did a TED Talk last year. Usually in my second session with clients or with my patients, I have them do this quick self-assessment to really evaluate who they are. And the majority of people that I find that come into my office over the years that just feel like unfulfilled, and they may have the house, they may have the cars, they may have the career, they may have the money, they may have the spouse, but they're still feeling this sense of unfulfillment, it's typically because they're operating life outside of their true nature. They're not being real. They're not being authentic. They're walking around with a mask, with a facade of who they feel everybody else wants them to be. And oftentimes this whole facade starts early on, even before you become an adult, because our caregivers or our parents will tell us who we should be, who we ought to be, or what career we should pursue. A friend of mine I see Odell said he knew someone that did that last week. A friend of mine on Facebook recently, she's a friend of mine, but I read her post yesterday on Facebook and commented, and she shared how her daughter came to her maybe about a year or so ago and decided that she was going to just drop out of her major. She was going to drop out of her major and pursue her passion in the arts. And she shared how she was just so devastated initially until she realized this is what this girl really wants to do. And this is where her talent lies. And I'll tell you this, on the opposite side, when I have spent 19 years counseling people or coaching people who, because of what their parents told them or educators told them, put their dreams to sleep, just said, you know what, I can't pursue that because there's no money in that. Or, this has always been the family business, so I'm going to go after that family business. As a parent, I know I would much rather for my children to be happy than to be living a life where they are not tuned in, plugged in, and just feeling the vitality that living your passion actually does. Now, if you think about it, and I'm not just talking about going to college, I'm just talking about as a whole, be true to who you are, because otherwise, you're going to be blocking any success. And I know success is subjective, but for me, success is really being authentically happy. Being authentically happy with yourself and with your life. It's not a dollar sign attached to that. It's just feeling like that you are being purposeful. And oftentimes people don't feel that they're being purposeful because they're living someone else's purpose. But you think about the people in history that have really made a mark on this world, have really changed history, who, they decided to let a lot of people down. They decided to open themselves up with judgment. Like even some of the famous college dropouts, like you think of Steve Jobs, dropped out of college, devastated his parents, because he could have probably had a good $80,000 a year job instead of being a billionaire, right? But we know how that turned out. You think about people like Steven Spielberg, Russell Simmons. These are all people who decided, I don't want to go along this path that everyone says I should go to. I want to follow my heart. I want to follow my passion. I want to lead my passion. And part of that, or the main part of that, is really understanding who you are. We all have our aptitudes, our individual aptitudes that really tell us what direction we should be moving in. But this is stuff they don't really necessarily teach in school. They don't necessarily teach in families or, our communities or our culture. But it's so important for us now to start instilling, not just in our children, but really start reprogramming ourselves and instilling with ourselves what's necessary for us to do to just have that fulfilling life. I just feel like we're in a shift, even in this world. It's a shift from this whole mentality of you get a job and you work a job for 35 years, you retire from that job, and that means you were successful. And the shift now is people really plugging into doing what fulfills them. What fulfills them? Not necessarily just the whole trappings of what that whole American dream was. So I want to encourage you guys to really consider these two aspects here. Being judgmental and not being authentically you as a block to your success. And I want you guys to share with me what your thoughts are on that. And like I said, many years I've seen many of clients that come in and people who on the outside we look at and we say, oh, they're very successful because they have all those trappings of success, but they're extremely unfulfilled, extremely unhappy in their lives because they've let their dreams die with expectations of what should be or what shouldn't be. So I want to challenge you all in this first, Transformation Tuesday after my hiatus. I want to challenge you all to really be honest with yourself, get real with yourself. Are you letting judgment or critique of other people get in the way of you pursuing your dreams? Because the quickest way to, if you're so fearful of people critiquing you, criticizing you, judging you, or crucifying you, then you need to stop critiquing, criticizing, and judging other folks, honestly. Because it really prevents you from branching out into the world and exposing yourself to all the beauty that is there when you allow yourself to just live out loud, basically. One of my coaching clients several years ago, couple of years ago, she used the term shrinking within herself when I brought this whole ideal of your judgment getting in the way of you being successful in life. and how there's a tendency, because you don't want to be seen, because you don't want people to judge you, because you're so programmed to judge other people, there's a tendency to shrink within yourself and not be seen, and allow just all these wonderful gifts that you have, these talents that you have stored within you, to just go and just, become dormant because of your fear of being judged. So the quickest way around getting around that fear of being judged is to stop judging. Stop judging. Next time you find yourself on social media and asking the question, who does she think she is, or who does he think he is, to have the audacity to go after that, whatever that dream or passion they may have, check yourself, because that's a person who has decided to tap into what's going to fulfill them, as opposed to be overly concerned with what other people are saying. And next week, I'm going to talk more about authenticity and getting to know who you are. What is your particular personality type? What direction are you hardwired to move in? I encourage you guys, the first chapter of my book, Bloom, 7 Steps of Personal Transformation. I'm looking around. I don't have a copy handy to show you, but if you go to my website, drrosemoulton.com, you can download the first chapter for free by just signing up to my email list, and it'll send you my first chapter free, and it talks about these personality types. And I want you guys to kind of evaluate that and see which type most resonates with you, and then ask yourself, are you living in accordance and in authenticity of your true personality type? And I can talk about that more. I actually do a full self-assessment with my coaching clients and with my patients, and I offer it if anyone's interested in really going in depth and finding out who you really are, like what the core and essence of who you are. Reach out to me, because I can do a session with you. We can do Skype. You don't even have to come and see me, and it's valuable information, and it helps you really to start plugging into life and start knocking down these blockades that gets in the way of your success. And Lynette says, stop judging needs to be on the t-shirt. It really does. It really does. It's amazing. It was a awareness for me. Like when I kept seeing so many patients coming in who just had these great ideals or great products that the world needed to see. And I'm like, what's holding them back? But in our conversations and my observation, it became very apparent that their extreme judgment towards other people was actually a hindrance for them. Think about that. Who would have thought that you being so judgmental would actually prevent you from going after what it is that you want? So guys, thanks for joining me today. I welcome any questions or comments regarding what we talked about today. The 2 things: stop judging and be real about who you are. Be authentic. And we're gonna really touch on that. Like I said, next week, that's gonna be the topic next week. And if you can't read the first chapter first, it's free. You can download it at my website, drrosemoulton.com. And if you are interested in any private coaching with me, reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. But thanks again, and thanks for all your patience over the last, it's been pretty much a year, but over a year since I've did the Transformation Tuesdays consistently. And I thank you guys for all your wonderful feedback that you've given me over the years and encouragement. It did not go unnoticed. But I'm feeling good. Ready to get back in the trenches with you guys so we can all start living our life in full bloom. Have a wonderful Tuesday evening, and give me your feedback. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.